Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to begin this evening's board meeting. Sergeant at Arms, is the lobby clear? Yes. Thank you. At this time, we request all electronic devices be turned off or put in silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from using flash photography except during the special presentations portion of the meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the January 24th, 2023 school board meeting. The time is 6 p.m. and this meeting is called to order. It is our privilege to hear one more song. Prior to the start of this evening's meeting, we have been enjoying music from the North Fort Myers High School Brass Quintet. This selection group of music students is under the direction of Sarah Johnson Scalisi and have received superior ratings at the District Solo and Ensemble Festival. If you would like to see more performances by this group, they will be performing live at this year's Lee County Schools Art Walk on Friday, March 3rd. Please join me in giving this group one more round of applause. world-class school system. Next on our agenda is the approval of our agenda. This evening's agenda includes a moment of silence, presentation of colors, Pledge of Allegiance, information, public comment, consent items, which include 2 items under Board Office, 1 item under Executive Services, 4 items under Academic Services, 4 items under Business Services, 13 items under Operations, 8 items under Public Hearings. Actually, that is now 7 items under Public Hearings and 4 items under Other Business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Mr. Fisher?
Motion to approve the agenda is said.
Second. Ms. Fleming? Will you please record your vote? The motion carries 7-0. As is the custom of the board, Mrs. Patricus will lead us in a moment of silence, after which Ms. Jordan will lead us in a presentation of the colors and Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please bow your heads in a moment of silence or prayer. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. Introducing the candidate who is presenting the national colors of our Pledge of Allegiance tonight is Sergeant First Class Giovanni Robinson, Army instructor from Fort Myers High School. Sergeant First Class Robinson served 20 years in the Army in numerous assignments and retired as a military police officer. This is Sergeant First Class Robinson's 6th year as our JROTC instructor in the district. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Presenting the national colors tonight is Cadet Colonel Benjamin Records, the Cadet Commander for Fort Myers High School JROTC Battalion. He is the captain of the Raiders team and a member of the Drones team. Cadet Records has recently been offered to attend the highly prestigious United States Army West Point Academy. Please join me in reciting our nation's Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. This evening's student representative from the District Student Advisory is Tatiana McBride. Tatiana is an 11th grade student at Ida Baker Senior High School. She is dedicated, hardworking, and loves to spend time with her family and friends whenever time allows it. Tatiana is currently taking 4 AP classes, moving towards her capstone diploma. She is also a member of the National Honor Society, the National Technical Honor Society. Through those clubs, Tatiana volunteers whenever an event comes up. She currently works at a law office as a legal assistant for the VA and PI departments. This job allows her to help people in need every day. Her goal in life is to become a defense attorney. Tatiana wants to help those who aren't able to help themselves. She wants to stand up for the people who need it and deserve it. She wants to treat them like a person and not just a case number. Please welcome Tatiana McBride. Next on our agenda is a Hurricane Ian recovery community update. Mr. Bernier, will you please provide a report?
Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to. Members of the board, public, we're plus 100 days from Hurricane Ian. Again, the purpose of these reports is to provide an update related to the district's recovery efforts regarding Hurricane Ian and how we're proceeding forward in reestablishing all of our school buildings back to full compliance and 100% repair.
Thank you.
Just waiting for the PowerPoint, sir. Our agenda this evening is standard. We always talk about Fort Myers Beach Elementary School, Hector A. Caffaretta Elementary School, and the Sanibel School K-8, as well as our long-term projects update. Because while we often talk about the 3 schools that appear to be most affected, all of our schools, or a vast majority of them, have been impacted. In terms of Fort Myers Beach Elementary School, we did host the town hosted a town hall on the 13th. Thank you very much to all the board members who turned out for that opportunity for us to interact once again with the Fort Myers Beach community. We talked about an assessment of some hybrid options and some community considerations. We agreed to develop an ad hoc committee which will meet on 1/26, which is on Wednesday. The scope of work continues at the historical building known as Building Number 2. That is the remediation and stabilization of that building, and it is in its final phases in terms of ensuring that we then can begin to do the work to bring it back to its historical status. Hector A. Caffaretta, the temporary campus, as you heard today, has been completed. The students actually returned to the campus prior to the winter holidays on 12/19. Long-term considerations were provided today in a board presentation, and we are now considering option C as, and those considerations and planning for that process are being finalized to bring forward to you as a recommendation. The Sanibel School, the K-8 school that's located on Sanibel Island, the remediation of that school is now complete. We continue ongoing weekly liaison meetings. Maintenance on site is preparing for the school opening. Student and staff transition plans are being finalized because there's a need not only to move materials, but also to get our staff and our students back. Bus routes are being run, and the community is beginning to understand that this very soon they'll be back in their school building again. Their electrical work, which has been the difficult part of reopening the school, is being completed, and we are now scheduled to reopen in early February. There was an original date of January 31st, but due to electrical concerns, we've had to move that back. And again, I go back to the safety point checklist that people heard about ad nauseum during the actual event. We have to have power and water, and it has to be sustainable. And those are always our first 2 checklists. Long-term projects update. 46% of the maintenance service requests that have been entered have related to damage sustained during Hurricane Ian have been completed. Existing maintenance contracts with local vendors are being used to address permanent repairs, and the long-term project timeline was shared with the principals on 1/23. We will again be moving forward, sharing that with the board, which has already been shared with you, but we'll share the final version, and then for the public, that timeline will be transparent. I would also be remiss if I didn't speak to the fact that just last week, we also had our official meeting with FEMA. So that begins a clock window with FEMA related to ensuring that all of our damages are properly assessed, all the paperwork is turned in. Imperium, the staff, and FEMA were present here in the HR conference room, and we look forward to continuing cadence with them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, yet to be determined. FEMA has our request for a schedule, and we're still waiting for their feedback. So that's my board update regarding the hurricane and where we stand as a district. I'd be open to any board discussion that you may have.
Board members, any discussion?
Ms. Jordan.
Oh, Ms. Jordan, sorry.
I would just like to say thank you, Dr. Bernier, for keeping us up to date continuously, whether it's through this meeting and in our one-on-ones. So thank you. And to the staff as well.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan.
Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. Mr. Corey Huffman, please address the item of public comment.
School board policy provides the opportunity. Here's like a microphone. My apologies. School board policy provides the opportunity. There we go. Great. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a public comment card, please put it in the basket provided. If you need a public comment card, they are provided by our staff. The rules concerning public comment are posted in the back, and public comment will be made from the podium in the front of the center aisle. Please be advised that the board will not respond during public comment to remarks made by speakers. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. The purpose of public comment is to provide feedback on school district issues. Abusive language is prohibited. In addition, clapping, hissing, and booing, unreasonably loud and/or offensive language, swearing, cursing, or display of temper during the public meeting or during the public comment time is prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow proper decorum in the chambers will be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the microphone per Board Policy 1.11 and may be removed from the chambers. Per Board Policy 1.11, the time per speaker is 3 minutes if there are 20 speakers, 2 minutes if there are 30 speakers, and 1 minute if there are 31 speakers or more. The maximum time allotted for public comment is 1 hour or 60 speakers. You will find a countdown on the big screens in the front of the room. Once your time has elapsed, the microphone will automatically shut off. Please state your name when you approach the microphone. I will call your name five speakers at a time. Please follow staff's direction when lining up. Mr. Chair, there are 13 speakers that wish to address the board this evening.
Please make sure you have completed a public comment card if you intend to provide public comment. The card is a public record identifying those who speak and providing contact information to staff for follow-up. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board but did not fill out a comment card? We have one. Oh, several. Okay. If you'll go over to my right. I believe that will make 16 speakers.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
If
Would
you'd
you like
like
me
to call the
proceed?
first 5, we can.
Yes. Will the following individuals please line up in the back? Gwen Gittens, Sharon McGill, Mike Louie, Lori Model, Jacqueline Perez.
Good evening. And before you start the clock, I'm very upset. I wanted to push the button and raise the finger. Okay. Okay, good evening. I'm Gwen Gittens. First thing I want to talk about is redistricting, so thank you for bringing up redistricting as promised. However, I believe it is gaslighting to always say, every time redistricting is brought up, that we have to represent all the students and not just one district. The public has to understand that the entire issue this afternoon was dismissed because it was said, I don't see a consensus of the board based on their comments. And I think there should be a little more to that before it's just dismissed that way. I want to refer to two things that Ms. Morgan said. One was that single-member districts causes competing for resources. And actually, deficiencies and needs of different districts must be brought to the board, not to compete, but to educate the entire board on issues that they may not be aware of. It's like a family. It's not sibling rivalry, but how do the parents know that one child needs a new pair of shoes if no one tells them? The other comment was that regarding the countywide position and how much it would cost and everything to run the campaign. And the comment was, I understand the campaign problem, but that's the community's problem and not ours. The 7 board members made the decision to table a topic. When do you hear from the community? The board decides if the community will even vote or discuss on something that they've already decided. And finally, not to throw stones, but when there are a plethora of incidents and proof of bad behavior, when, if ever, will it be addressed? We don't allow bullying and intimidations by students and staff in schools. Why is it allowed by adults? Remember, there's always someone watching you. Thank you.
Sharon McGill. I know that I won't get an answer right now, but I'd like to put this out there for consideration. There's a lot of people in the community that are concerned about what's going on with HB1 and the media specialists and how that's impacting all of our schools throughout the district. Do all of our schools currently have media specialists in place who are reviewing materials? Are kids being denied access to library books and classroom books until all of this gets resolved? I know this is a Herculean task for a media specialist to go through an entire school and check on every book in the school, but if they don't, and if it's not done in a timely fashion, it's denying children access to books, which is just totally unacceptable. So please, for your consideration.
Good evening, Mike Love, Economic Development Chair of the NAACP. I'd like to address the Hurricane Ian cleanup process. And although I want to start off by saying that we are impressed with the management team that Dr. Bernier has put towards this problem, but we cannot say that we are totally happy because all this work could have been done by local contractors. And I know on the emergency situation, you want to bring in the best of the contractors to get the work done. We understand that. And as a result, we have spoken to the management team about this, and we totally understand the move that was made, and we are impressed with the performance that was done. However, we were told that was phase 1. We are now looking forward to phase 2, where local contractors will be heavily depended upon to get the job done. And once again, I must say, the management team, we are impressed with their performance, and to see the work that has been done and the school buildings that are being restored, it's impressive work, and we are impressed. The second thing I would like to discuss is the procurement process. The procurement process used to be bulky, full of legalese and very hard if you are a local contractor or you're a small business development contractor to work with. The legal team of the school board has taken on this process, and the work that they're doing has streamlined the procurement process. And it's not often that the NAACP is impressed with work that is being done at the moment, but yes, we are impressed with the work that is being done in the procurement department and how the legalese have been stripped, and we are now understanding the procurement process with the thing that is we need when we are making decision of how to bid. We thank Attorney Dupuy-Brunel and the work that she's doing, and we hope that we can continue to work with her to get our local contractors working effectively for the school district. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lori Model. I met a couple of you yesterday at North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts as you toured our school. Ms. Langford Fleming, I used to take your class. I am the dance director who stages the annual Nutcracker Ballet at Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall, and I am the subject area specialist for dance here in Lee County. Tonight I'm here to ask you to exempt North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts, or even all K-8 schools from the proposed proximity plan. We understand that there is no intention to take away the amazing arts programs that have grown and thrived since the schools changed from Suncoast to North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts just over 20 years ago. However, the proposed plan does not support our current programming by limiting the support from Cape Coral. We propose that the new zoning continues as it was set in the 2020-2021 school year. Part of what makes our school so special is the students from different walks of life interact, create, learn, and grow in an inspiring community. As educators, we are taught to diversify our classes and groupings in our classes. Why would our school district not want to do the same for our schools and our district? The results can be seen in the many awards the school has received. The Art Schools Network Outstanding Art School, January 2012. Arts School Network Exemplary School, 2022 to 2027. The Arts Achievement Model School, 2008 to 2011, and the Florida Alliance for Arts Education Arts Achievement Model School, 2020 to 2023. I ask you to please consider the exemption for North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts or all K-8 schools in the proposed proximity plan until an equitable plan can be found. Thank you very much.
Will the following individuals please line up? Betsy Vaughn, Vicki Santini, Dr. Doug Santini, Dr. Shirley Chapman, Denise Nystrom, and I believe we're waiting for Ms. Perez to provide her comment.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Bernier, Board Attorney Kathy Dupuy-Bruno. I'm Betsy Vaughn. This afternoon I talked a little bit about the briefing discussion of single-member districts. I tend to be a little long-winded, so I didn't finish, and I want to recap and add some information in addition. I support the 7 single-member districts that was proposed by the Equity and Diversity Board actually last year at the end of the year. To recap, getting rid of the at-large districts, I had said and this is something to keep in mind, that at-large districts have flaws. Important. They impede racial, ethnic, or political minorities from seats at the dais. For instance, countywide districts can allow majority voting blocks to defeat minority group candidates even when the group has a sufficient share of the population to deserve its own representation. At-large districts also enable disproportionate representation. For example, between 2016 and 2018, 3 of the 7 board members resided in the Estero Bonita Springs area. I was very disturbed with the way the briefing, the way Vice Chair Samuel Fisher, I have to say, handled the way the discussion was done this afternoon. He shut down the board's discussion very quickly, saying that it looks like the board isn't in favor of this. Well, I even went home and looked at the video one more time. There was no specific polling. As a member of the community, someone who feels very strongly about this, I want to see on the record who opposes and who favors this. What I saw this afternoon was that there was 1 person in favor, thank you, Ms. Jordan, that there was 1 who was quote unquote on the fence, Ms. Giovanelli, 2 who took no stand. I want to see it on the record. I want to see that repeated. And also, I'm going to ask you one more time, put your personal electoral agendas away. Put this out for the public in a referendum the way other changes have been.
Good evening, Board. Doug Santini. I'll finish up what I tried to do at the workshop. My time slipped away. Over 250 kids in the elementary school at North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts is affected by what's happening. Of course, you said you're going to grandfather them in, but there are a lot of parents that can't afford that. And they've been through an intensive art program that is completely different than any school in this county. I can tell you that because I was president of the Florida Alliance for Arts Education for 2 years. I've been around the entire state, and it is a fantastic program. 250 kids. Also, what happens to those kids that go in 6th grade this year that are under a different boundary plan? Do they get to bring their siblings too? Also, you've got probably around 10 to 15,000 students that are going to be affected countywide with this plan. Most of them don't know what's going on. I can tell you at the Academy they do not. I questioned 20 families, and not a one of them knew except one that was at the town hall. She thought it was going to be turned into a magnet school, and she left without any worry. So I think we need to realize what's going to happen in a couple weeks. And it's going to be, it's not really right what's going on. I went around and got the mileage from J. Colon and Littleton. Same mileage to the 2 schools, and they're in different zones, right close to the Academy. A little over 3 miles. One of the big areas you're taking away is Gator Circle. North Fort Myers Academy is closer to that than any school around it. It's less than 5 miles. It's 4-point-something miles. So I don't know why this thing was planned this way. Remember, there's only 3 schools that they put with it. Other areas of the county, they put 4 to 5. That's not the right way to do something, to spread what's there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Santini. I think most of you all know me. I came up because my husband wasn't able to finish his presentation today, and I just want you all to know that I think probably the solution to this problem would to make all K-8 schools in the same proximity zone that they have right now, instead of taking them out and changing them. There's a big culture going on in each schools. I know this firsthand. I wasn't at the school, but I could tell you, I was up many, many nights while my husband was at the school till 10, 11 o'clock at night, okay, waiting for him. People around came up to me and thanked me for letting him be at that school. I have a note from somebody that was at the school several years ago. They just came over the email tonight, so I brought it to you, printed it up so you all can have it. This young man is now at Carnegie Mellon University, and he attributed all his attributes for what happened at the academy. So I'm going to leave this with the secretary there, and you all have a copy of it.
Good evening. My name is Shirley Chapman. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting the new board members, and I look forward to doing that before too long. I want to first piggyback on what Mr. Mike Love said concerning Ms. Attorney Dupe Bruno and how cooperative that she has been toward us, the NAACP. And you will be getting a letter, Ms. Bruno, in writing, so you have something in writing as a recommendation from us. The other thing I want to say is I am a proud graduate of Dunbar High School, class of 1964. That was during the days of segregation. And the reason things went so well for me and for a lot of other people in my class was that we had teachers that taught some things about Black history that normally we would not have known. My concern now is that I believe with all my heart that if children don't know where they have been, if they don't know the struggles and the hard times that their parents and foreparents have had, they really don't know how to appreciate what they're having to go through. We talk about motivating students. That's one of the best ways to motivate them. Let them know how things were and let them know what they have an opportunity to become. And so I'm hoping that you consider that before you decide not to allow AP classes being taught to African American children. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of children, their families, and the staff. People don't want to be here to focus on the negatives, but when a person's position affects children, then people must speak out. I started attending the school board meetings in April of 2021, and when I first started attending the meetings, I came with an objective mindset, trying to gain an understanding of what specifically was going on and why the children in Lee County were not doing that well academically. Unfortunately, the more board meetings I attended, the more concerned that I became about the way particular board members conducted business. There is a board member who, because of her behavior, needs to be addressed. Within the past few days, I obtained an investigation report based on a whistleblower that Attorney Bruno put in about Mrs. Petrika. The findings of this report only serve to substantiate and validate what it is that I witnessed myself for over a year and a half. I have faith in the majority of the school board members that are here, and I'm urging you all to keep in mind that your first priority is the children, the families, and the community. You have an important decision to make this evening about how you're going to respond to this investigative report that has confirmed what the public has been speaking about and has known about for years. Thank you.
Will the following individuals please line up? Joe Phillips, George Fox, Carla Fox, Johnny Mae Hawkins, Bonnie Cunard, Kayla Gunther.
Good evening, Board. In September 27th of last year, 2022, the School District of Lee County did their final monitoring report from the federal government of being monitored from a resolution agreement where they were being monitored for bullying a child and violating that child's rights, disability rights, bullying, and retaliation. I have all the documents, which are lengthy, where in 2015, the district entered into an agreement with the federal government where they developed a bullying and retaliation program where they paid thousands and thousands of dollars to train staff over a 30-day period in 2015, which resulted in the removal of a superintendent, and they trained staff in bullying. You have an excellent bullying program, which annually all your staff is trained in. So if we have a bullying program, which you just were under supervision from the federal government, and the day before Ian hit, you were released for 5-year supervision from the federal government, what the heck has been going on? From reading this report, bullying is not your only problem. You have bigger issues going on here. You have collusion. You have a board member who has been unethical, coercing employees to help her gain advantage for a vendor. You're talking about unethical behavior, perhaps gaining advantage for contracts, which brings another problem because the 2 employees that come into question were employees who handled the most delicate departments in this district, professional standards. So it brings into question all those investigations that were created over those 5 or 6 years while Ms. Patrica was a board member. Every employee that was found guilty has a right to question if they were found guilty of something, because those employees that were coerced or manipulated by her, we know that they are of not good character. So those employees have a right to question those investigations now. And several of those employees have come forward to complain over the years that they were treated unfairly. And you have to open those cases and look at them now with an objective view. So I'm asking you to protect the public. This individual is a lunatic. She's a sociopath. She has lied, manipulated staff. There's nothing you could do.
Excuse me.
No, those are clinical
the mic.
terms. There are clinical terms. A sociopath is a clinical term. And if you have looked at the news and you've seen what she has done, she has lied about children, about employees, about myself, about my...
I'm sorry, please.
No, Armor, if you have watched meetings, you know what this individual has done.
Wait, you're not allowed to attack employees.
I'm not attacking.
Yes, you are.
I'm stating a fact. I'm stating a fact. You need to protect the public. You need to protect children. You need to protect employees. That has been attacked.
Please remove her.
You don't have to remove me. Don't touch me.
My name's Smoking Joe. We're not here today because of the actions of this board. Sadly enough, we're here because of the persistence of the people of this community. They persisted in pursuing a cancer that y'all have had on this board for years. And as a new board, I think y'all want to start it clean. Start off fresh. And for some of you from the South, if you don't, you know, the meaning, bless your heart, what my mama always said. You know, the sad thing is we've had ongoing issues with one board member, from inappropriate comments about Guatemalan students to accusations of shady dealings with vendors. This district has let this be a plague for years. It's time that somebody stands up and do something. The proper thing would be for this board member to resign, which I find highly unlikely, for it seems her morals or lack of justifies her actions. You people need to find it in your heart to know what's right for this community. This is not right. You know, if we had a student that was going to be suspended for something, we're not going to workshop it. The time for talking's done. The workshopping, you can't workshop this out of existence. Thank God for Peter Fleischer and the other media that's covering this finally. As a member of this community, I am imploring this new board to do the right thing. Regardless of what you think of me or what I think of y'all, this is the right thing. And today's the day for somebody to send this to the governor. This is no longer in y'all's control. I was appalled at one member of the board for attacking a member for posting something on social media. That's not your job, and you don't have the authority to attack members of the public. Your job is to serve this community, and you're not doing a very good job if you're attacking these people. Now, that was a very dereliction of duty, removing that woman for speaking the truth. Whether you want to be attacked or not, you're a public official. The truth and transparency. Why will this board not get it down? Go ahead, come on, let's get a forensic audit. I've been begging for years. Y'all know this. Get a forensic audit. Show the people that you're trying to do something for the community and not for yourself. This is not a self-serving position. This is for the community. Please resign. Do the world a favor. You have plagued this district for years. I'm Smoking Joe. Peace out.
George Fox. Oh, thank you. Chris, you do a great job. You're one of the hardest working and smartest board members this district has ever had. Now listen. So guys, back this week for the issue of, paying for buildings with cash and getting out of debt. Had an interesting, Debbie was there, we had an interesting interchange with Matt Caldwell, BUPAC the other day, and asked him this specific issue, and he's got a pretty good, he kind of surprised me. He responded, yeah, that'd be a good idea, which is significant because Matt is the representative for the Republican Party in the state for this area, and he carries a lot of weight, and he's one of the smartest people you ever meet. He knows what he's doing. So I think the door is there if this board wishes to gather the support of the public, get out of debt. I think that would go over fairly well with the public. I think so, yes. Saving them money and improving the efficiency and everything that the board does. It'd be a major, major thing if the board decides to get the district out of debt and try to use the resources better in a smarter way. The other issue I just want to keep after is with the elementary school. I mean, I don't have anybody behind me, but I think it's a great idea that every single day kids read, they read every day, but I mean, solve 10 math problems and write a paragraph before they do anything else in elementary school, and middle school. So they learn how to put their brains at work, and it's self-initiative. Every single day is, talk about student motivation, but it's really self-initiative. Some people are born with it, most people are not, but it can be learned. You can learn how to do it, and that's an excellent way of doing it. And also, providing the basics, the very single basics, the DNA of an education. So I would really like to see the board and the staff and all the teachers and everyone, let's do it, right? Let's get out of debt. Let's get the kids working every single day. So as a parent, you send your kid to school, they're going to at least done 10 math problems and written a paragraph. And that's pretty powerful if you really sit down and you think about it. The cumulative effect over their schools, over their schooling is very powerful. And it's simple. There is so much, complexity to the world of public schools. But yet it's simple if you get right down to it. So instead of bickering with each other and going after one of the best board members we've ever had, let's just come together and get those kids working and not worry about.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Bernier, Attorney Dupree Bruno, Charla Fox. I am a teacher in this district, and I'm here to ask you to come together once again and make a decision about board authority on compensation. We have been asking for this so that bargaining can be completed for this current year. We have already worked more than half a year, and you need to put together the numbers that you are willing to put together and give that authority so that bargaining can be finished. It is the only thing we are waiting for. Everybody has been wondering, when are we finishing? When are we finishing? People were getting ready to come here yesterday in order to be part of that bargaining session. And all of a sudden, well, there's no bargaining session because you all did not come to a consensus on Friday on what your bargaining authority was going to be with the teachers for the current year. We've worked half of it already. We need to get ourselves ahead of this so that teachers coming into this district know what their contract is. But we can't do that unless we get through with this current one so that we can go ahead and later this year get started on the next. So I am asking you to put that to the forefront. I know you have a lot of different things going on. I do too. I've got to go back home and prepare for classes tomorrow. But I am here because when I spoke to a number of teachers, they're going, wait a minute, what? What do you mean the board did not make a decision? We've been trying to get that decision since right before the hurricane. I know that things have changed. There have been adjustments that needed to be made to those numbers. But those decisions need to be made so that we can move forward and know where we're going. We have a lot of people that are trying to decide whether they are staying as teachers in this district. And we're losing a lot. I see it at school. So I'm asking you to please put that on your agenda so that we can go to bargaining meeting on the 30th. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Board. My name is Dr. Johnny Mae Hawkins. I am an employee here with the School District of Lee County. And first, I want to mention about the situation with my school, Franklin Park Elementary, and the cafeteria that our students are faced with in terms of the eating process. I understand that Hector Cafferetta has a working cafeteria. They're in portables, just like we are. And I just want to know why our students, who I love so dearly, have to eat cold lunches. If there's any way it can be reconsidered in terms of the makeup of how they eat lunch, change of the dynamics of the cafeteria, I would love for you guys to look into that and see if that can happen so that our children can eat warm lunches. It's not fair that they have to eat cold lunches every day. A lot of them don't have meals at home, and the majority of them, that's where they get their healthy meals, from school. And right now, the cold meals, they're not healthy. So I ask that you look into that, if at all possible. The second thing is, about 6 years ago, I was removed from my position as an administrator. I was accused of not reporting an issue with a teacher on something that I did not witness. The person that witnessed it was not reprimanded, instead was promoted in my position. I'm asking that this situation be looked into. The investigation, as far as I was concerned, was not fair on my behalf, and I'm asking that that situation, that investigation be looked into, and I really, really want my name, my record to be cleared with the DOE. I'm about to retire. I'm in drop, and I am an ethical person, as ethical as they can get. And what I was accused of and removed from my position for was not any doing of my own. It was unfair to me, and I want to be adjudicated for this incident that I was accused of, that I'm not guilty of. And I would appreciate if, I know Dr. Bernier, I had your number, and I missed.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is finished. If you could please give your information to our staff, and we'll be happy to assist. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Kennard. I am a teacher here in Lee County. 33 years teaching here in the state of Florida this month. Woohoo! And I'm proud to say 20 of them here in Lee County. At least 15 of them teaching at North Fort Myers Academy of the Arts, where both of my daughters attended school. And so I'm here tonight to speak about that. I understand proximity. I mean, everybody loves the idea of neighborhood schools. I understand that it could save you a bundle of money on busing. You know, there's economic decisions to be made, but I'm here today just to talk about the children. As I said, both of my daughters attended North Fort Myers Academy of the Arts. I was a single parent teacher here in this county, and it was difficult. I lived in Cape Coral. I literally took the job at NFMAA to get my oldest daughter into that school. That's how amazing that program was. And that's back when it first started. I think Dr. Santini hired me, thank the Lord, his first year opening the academy. We were an F school at the time. But I did it because if you saw the program and you saw how amazing it was, you knew it was right. And my youngest daughter also went through the program. Both of them now graduated from Lee schools. My oldest daughter with a degree from the University of Central Florida in design and digital media, all that she learned at NFMAA. And right here, working for your current Lee and doing your news here in the Lee County School Board, right here in this building with Jason Sill for years. That's where she learned her skills that she has a career from now. And I'm so thankful. My youngest daughter, last night, or the night before, she was voted at the University of South Florida. She won New Member of the Year of the University of South Florida Herd of Thunder Marching Band, and I was so proud of her. But it's not because of me. It's Mitzi Smith at North Fort Myers Academy who in first grade taught her how to play the violin. It's Lori Model who taught her how to do Nutcracker on stage, stand up straight in interviews. It was Miss Moffitt who was her band director and taught her the flute and the steel drums. I mean, these were her foundations. I watched students in my English class teaching there for 15 years come in, couldn't write a word couldn't write a sentence. And the combination of our high-level arts kids with these neighborhood kids and a strong magnet program, research-based, it worked. And we watched kids out of Suncoast come out and go to college and thrive out of that arts program, and they never would have done it before when it was Suncoast Middle School. We had fights every day when we first transitioned over from Suncoast. It was a completely different environment. And all I ask is that you give them the exemption, take the time, and while I mention it, I'm a teacher at South Fort Myers High School. We have an amazing tech program there. What about the Lehigh kids who can't get their own transportation? What happens if they get a waiver then?
Good evening, my name is Kayla Gunther. I'm a Fort Myers High School graduate and now I'm a parent of a first grader and a rising kindergartner. I have some comments about the proximity plan, but first I wanted to just give kudos to Dr. Bernier and Dr. Malloy. The way that they handled the whole process for me has been really easy to follow. I enjoyed the community engagement events where we could look at the maps and give feedback, so I appreciated their efforts with that. Regarding the new zones, I live in the east zone and I'm a little disappointed about the way that it got divided. My family is now, I'm not in a zone now where I'm within 5 miles of any school. So there are 3 schools within 5 miles of my home. None of them, I'm not in any of those zones, and the closest school is twice as far from my house. And I think part of the problem is they didn't take into consideration a logical divide for the east zone. So I live west of State Road 82, but I'm now in a zone where all of the schools are far east into Lehigh, which creates a lot of trouble for my family with pickup and drop off, and we have to use an after school program, so an afternoon bus is not an option. So it would be helpful if they could maybe look at that dividing line a little better. I also have some concerns about one of the other zones, Zone O. It seemed a little unfair to me to be putting both of the Ramos C. Page and Harlem Heights in the same zone. I think that those are 2 of the best elementary schools in the district, and so the students in that zone are going to have more of an advantage. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that is our last public comment.
Thank you. Next is the approval of action items in the agenda under consent. The documentation for action items listed under consent is made available to board members 7 business days prior to the board meeting. We are expected to review all the material, and we have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent with any questions we may have regarding his recommendations. Some of these items have also been briefed or workshopped with the board in advance of appearing on the action agenda. Board members, are there any agenda items you wish to pull for discussion under unfinished business tabled items portion? Mr. Fisher.
No, sir.
Ms. Giovanelli.
I have none.
Mrs. Patricia.
No, thank you.
Ms. Jordan.
I have none. Thank you.
Mrs. Langford Fleming.
I have none.
And Ms. Morgan.
I have none.
And I have none. Is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items with the exception of, there are no exceptions. So is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items? Mrs. Jordan?
I move that we accept the action items.
A second?
As written. Second.
Okay, Ms. Jada Fleming, second. Please record your vote. Consent items passed 7-0. We are now moving to public hearing. We will recess the regular school board meeting and open the public hearing. The time is 7:05 p.m. As indicated,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
we have one more thing. I don't know if the superintendent has anybody that he wants to.
Oh, recognize. I apologize.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there are 3 administrative appointments that were on the agenda tonight. We'd like to recognize the appointment of Janet Morris, who will be moving from the Grants and Program Development Office to the Coordinator of Grants Development. In a change of assignment, Jose Cuevas from Application Services will be becoming the Coordinator of Information Services. Jose? There you go. And finally, Dorn Beto, known as DJ, will be moving from her position in Safety and Security to become the Assistant Director, Safety, Security, and Emergency Management. DJ. Mr. Chair, those are all the appointments this evening.
Thank you. We will now recess for the regular school board meeting and open the public hearing. The time is 7:06. As indicated, the public hearing this evening is to consider Dr. Bernier's recommendations as previously stated. At this time, I'm sorry, would you please read your recommendations?
Chairman and board members, in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulation, and statutes, and to adopt the best practices and to promote transparency and accountability, the following policies are being brought forward for board action. The effective date of the 1 adoption and 6 revisions shall be January 25, 2023. The policies are as follows. Item P1, approval to adopt policy 2.36, designation of bathrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms. Item P2, approval to revise policy 2.11, safety. Item P3, approval to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities. Item P4, approval to revise policy 2.16, threat assessment team. Item P5, pulled prior to the meeting. Item P6, approval to revise policy 4.19, student records. Item P7, approval to revise policy 4.221, student suicide prevention, awareness, and screening. And item P8, approval to revise policy 4.28, homeless students.
Thank you. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these 7 items. The time allowed for each public comment is 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board regarding the approval of policy 2.36, designation of bathrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms? I see none. Is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding the approval to revise board policy 2.11, school safety and security? We have one. Please come forward, state your name.
Sharon McGill, and it's more a comment than a question of any kind. I was looking at the policy, and it kept referring to the district school safety specialist. And I went, okay, who's the school district safety specialist? So I went to the organization chart, and there was no school safety district specialist, sorry, I'm getting it out of order, school safety specialist on the organizational chart. So I actually asked Mr. Newland, and he said, oh, that's me. And I said, well, somewhere there needs to be a connection then, so that if I were looking at the organizational chart, I would know that those were part of his responsibilities as well. Because as it is, you all probably knew it was him. But anybody in the public or a parent or anything, there'd be no way that they would know whatsoever. So just a comment on that.
We have one more speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question on the line 22, where it says no monitoring equipment shall be purchased, et cetera, unless the information systems department is informed. And my question is there a different type of equipment for the district office than there is for schools? Or, how does that work? So I don't know if anyone can answer that, or are we at the same standard if we're going to have one thing here, we're going to have the same thing in the schools, or, vice versa? Thank you.
Any more speakers on P2? We'll move to P3. Is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding the approval to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities? Seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to address the board P4, sorry. Is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding the approval to revise board policy 2.16, threat assessment team? I see none. P5 was pulled. P6, is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding approval to revise board policy 4.19, student records? I see none. P7, is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding the approval to revise board policy 4.221, student suicide prevention, awareness, and screening? I see none. P8, is there anyone who would like to address the board regarding the approval to provide board policy 4.28, homeless students? And I see none. I will now close the public hearing and reconvene the regular school board meeting of January 24, 2023. The time is 7:12. Dr. Bernier, please restate your recommendations for this evening's public hearings items, one at a time.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item P1, approval to adopt policy 2.36, designation of bathrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practice and promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the student's recommendation, the superintendent's recommendation, he can be a student too, that the board approve to adopt policy. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Adopt policy 2.36, designation of bathrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we adopt policy 2.36.
Moved by Ms. Patrica and seconded by Ms. Jordan. Is there any discussion? I see none. Please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier.
Mr. Chair, item P2, approval to revise policy 2.11, safety in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practice and to promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise board policy 2.11, school safety and security. Board members, is there a motion to approve? Ms. Jordan?
I move to approve the revised policy 2.11 safety.
And is there a second? Mr. Fisher?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I see none. Please record your vote. The motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier.
Item P3, approval to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practices and to promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities. Board members, is there a motion to approve? Mr. Fisher.
Motion to approve revised policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities.
Is there a second? This is Jada Fleming. Seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please register your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier?
Since item P5 was pulled, the next item would be item P6, approval to revise. Excuse me?
Sorry. P4.
Oh, sorry. Item P4, approval to revise policy 2.16, threat assessment team in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practice and promote the transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise policy 2.16, threat assessment team. Board members, is there a motion to approve? Ms. Jordan? Motion.
I move to approve the revised policy 2.16 threat assessment team.
Is there a second? Mr. Fisher?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier.
Mr. Chair, item P5 was pulled prior to the meeting, so we move to item P6, approval to revise policy 4.19, student records in compliance with the changes in related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practices and promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise policy 4.19, student records. Board members, is there a motion to approve? Ms. Jordan?
I move to approve the revised policy 4.19 student records.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Morgan, seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, item P7, approval to revise policy 4.221, student suicide prevention awareness and screening in compliance with the changes and related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practices and to promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise policy 4.221, student suicide prevention, awareness, and screenings. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
I will approve to revise policy 4.221, student suicide prevention, awareness, and screening.
Is there a motion, a second?
Second.
Ms. Jordan. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
It's not a discussion. I just want to make a comment that we are here approving all of these, but we have already had multiple conversations regarding all of these, just for the public. Thank you.
Good point. No other discussion? Please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, item P8, approval to revise policy 4.28, homeless students in compliance with the changes and related rules, regulations, and statutes, to adopt best practices and to promote transparency and accountability. The effective date of this adoption shall be January 25, 2023.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise policy 4.28, homeless students. Board members, is there a motion to approve? Board Member Fisher, go ahead.
Sorry. Motion to approve revised policy 4.28, homeless students.
Okay,
I'll second.
Ms. Jada Fleming seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. We will now move to the good of the order and board members in business and board members' comments. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I gave most of my public comments before. I just want to reiterate to the public that we had a very productive time up in Tallahassee. I appreciate what our legislative delegation is looking to, our House and Senate leadership, as well as the governor's office. They were very supportive, especially of our hurricane relief, so I appreciate that. That's all I have at this moment.
Mrs. Giovanelli.
I just have a couple things. I spoke earlier, so I'm not going to talk about Tallahassee, even though it was a great visit. And the leadership with Dr. Bernier was awesome, because that was a piece that we've never had before. And I feel that it's going to be very effective to work as a team with the superintendent. So I really enjoyed my visit with the legislatures and as well with Dr. Bernier. But I do want to mention that just a couple things. STEMtastics is on February 11th at the Colusa Sound Center, Colusa Center. Colusa Sound, yes, thank you. Sorry, at the Luminary, and that is Saturday from like 10 to 2, I think it is. And I would recommend any students love it, adults love it. It's a great event. I would recommend and highly recommend everyone attend. Also, the Grand Parade is actually February 18th, and the Junior Parade is February 12th. And a lot of our students and schools participate in both parades, and it's a really exciting family event. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Patika.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair,
Yes.
address the vice chair, I was super happy with the way you were in this afternoon's meeting. I think all of our meetings have been going right on time, and I felt as if my feedback was listened to, and I thought you really had your finger on the pulse of where the board landed on that issue. So we can't speak back there, so I just wanted you to know that I didn't understand those comments, and I appreciate your leadership. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. I gave most of my report this afternoon. I just wanted to make a correction. As a legislative liaison, I went ahead and reported everything that we had done up in Tallahassee, but I wanted to make sure that there was a statement that was said that we had never been up there to visit our legislatures, which I just want to make sure that that was corrected. We have gone every year. We do see all of our legislators, some see more than others, but that has never stopped us from being up there every year and speaking on our legislative priorities. So I wanted to just put that out there. And also, I just want to say congratulations to all of those in their new positions, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Tatiana, would you like to say something?
Sure. So I just want to point out that I'm actually really happy about all the safety things we're going to be doing to change things up, because recently, these few years, especially in my school, I've seen like the rise of all fights happen. Like at our school, recently we've been having like 5 fights every single day. It's been going really bad. So that we're implementing safety, I think it's a really good thing that gets revised and looked over, since we have new things that popped up these recent years.
Thank you. Ms. Jada Fleming.
Tatiana, you are going to be an amazing attorney one day. So thank you so much for taking your evening to spend with us. It's actually, I feel like it's my privilege. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's mine. And I just wanted to say what an amazing start to the meeting tonight with the quintet that started us off. And I know that last song that they started off is a little, hits a little home for some of our board members. So again, the losses are, your family is in our prayers also. So Tatiana, thank you again, and thank you for the updates, the continuing updates, Superintendent, about the hurricane. I think that's incredibly important. I feel being out in the community, they feel the same way. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Morgan.
I have no comments. Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to use my go to the order and make some comments and emotions. On December 19th, 2022, the board received the final report from the law firm Taylor English regarding its investigation. In addition, on January 3rd, 2023, the board received the final investigation report that Ms. Morgan requested that I retrieve. Both reports had significant findings. Based on the findings, some of these matters are being further investigated. Thus, we will not discuss them at this time, but the board will take, hopefully, some action pending the final outcome. My first motion is that I move the board to accept the final investigative reports, findings, and recommendations dated December 19, 2022, and January 3rd, 2023. The superintendent and the board attorney are directed to implement the following recommendations and follow their recommendations. Is there a second to my motion? Mr. Fisher.
Second.
It's moved by the chair and seconded by Mr. Fisher. Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Morgan.
I move to divide the motion in two. One motion to accept the recommendations of December 19, 2023. One to accept the recommendations of January 3rd, 2023.
Is there any other discussion?
Needs a second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you're going to
Yes.
need a second on Ms.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second? on
I
Ms.
second
Morgan?
that.
Okay. I have no problem splitting the two. So we will make the motion And it's been seconded. I withdraw my motion, and I'll accept the amendment. Is that how we do that?
So if you want to withdraw your motion, Mr.
Right.
Chairman, you can, and then just make two separate motions.
Okay. I will withdraw mine. Motion 1, I move the board accept the final investigative reports, findings, and recommendations dated December 19th, 2022. Is there a second to my motion? Mr. Fisher?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Giovanelli.
I'm just curious why separate it. I'm just curious what would be the reason to separate the two?
Ms. Morton?
At this time, Ms. Giovanelli, Mr. Fisher has withdrawn his motion and has now done two separate motions. So that's what's pending on the floor right now, is the first motion to accept the December 19th investigative report.
But we didn't discuss why to do that. I mean,
Because before the discussion, he withdrew it.
Yeah. I have no problem. It's
okay. Well, I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
irrelevant. Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, did you want to add the rest of that, though? The superintendent, school board are directed to implement and follow the recommendations of the findings?
You are correct. I hate being corrected. Let me restate my motion, please. I move the board accept the final investigative reports, findings, and recommendations dated December 19th, 2022. The superintendent and the school board attorney are directed to implement and follow the recommendations. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Second on the amended motion.
Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Giovanelli.
So are we going to vote on the other two motions then?
That's later, yes.
Or we just, well, because it says directed to implement the following recommendations, and then you go on to that, it doesn't really, I didn't really understand.
So let me clarify a little bit where we are, because I believe that Mr. Persons corrected his motion, so I'm going to see that as a withdrawal of the first motion, because you just made an inadvertent error by not including the last sentence. So the motion that is currently pending is to accept the final investigative report findings and recommendations dated December 19, 2022, and the superintendent and school board attorney are directed to implement and follow the recommendations, properly seconded by Mr. Fisher. At this point, there is discussion just on this particular motion.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please record your votes.
Is it a hand vote?
Oh, yeah, probably. Mr. Chairman, it would be a roll call vote,
Okay.
please.
I'm sorry. Mr. Fisher?
Aye.
Mrs. Giovanelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Petrika?
Yes, please.
Oh. We have not had,
Oh, public comment.
Sorry, that's true. We need to have public comment. That's
sorry, I take my vote.
That's splitting. I'm sorry. There's, at this time, the public is invited to make comments. Please come forward.
Thank you. I would be remiss not to mention in this situation that from watermarking to frivolous ethics complaints to costing taxpayers money, intimidation, screaming, belittling, all of the things that happened. And you can shake your head. I was one of the victims of it. I have been yelled at, screamed at, belittled, blackballed in FSBA, all types of things. I just, like I said earlier, I don't understand, and this is not about me, but it's about getting on with the business of the school district. I sat in that chair and was very often told, stay in your lane, stop asking questions, and you're not supposed to do that. We need to hold people accountable for what they do. We went through all kinds of trainings and discussions and everything else, and nothing worked. Things for me got worse. So I am asking you on behalf of the community, and I am not saying that Ms. Patrica is not a good person or not a smart person. She's very intelligent. But there is an issue if you can't get along with the people that you're supposed to get along with. Thank you.
May I make a point of order? Are we discussing the Taylor English?
Yes.
Investigation?
Yes.
Are we?
So Mr. Persons,
Correct.
Mr.
That is-
Persons, there's been a point of order if you want to make a ruling, just to be clear for the public.
Yes, that was on January 3rd, and we're discussing the December 19th, which is that's why it's a little tough to separate them, but not knowing, going into great detail. If this is concerning to what I think it is, on the next motion. Well spoken, Joe. Thank you. I apologize.
So just to be clear for the public,
Can I make one point of order? There's at least 3 attorneys on this board, correct? At least 3. Sam, you're an attorney. How did y'all not see that civil rights violation where he just tried to silence a community member? We've been entangled in lawsuits because of Patrica, yet you got a chair that's just done the same thing. And now we don't understand what you're even voting on. There's only one solution, and that's to turn this matter over to our governor. You have no other solution here, and the public's not going to be quiet till you do. That's why you've got the whole parking lot's full of media right now. You just made 2 infractions. As attorneys, y'all need to advise your chair.
so let me be very clear what is pending. What Mr. Chairman has stated is that there were 2 investigations. One report came in on December 19th, 2022, and that was a report that was drafted by a firm called Taylor English. There is another investigation. We cannot discuss that December 19th investigation because it is currently with other agencies. They requested, and then Mr. Chairman actually put both investigations together. January 3rd is another investigation that came out, and Mr. Chairman made a motion to have both voted on at the same time. Mrs. Morgan requested that it be divided so that we're not voting on both investigations at the same time. And then Mr. Chairman withdrew his motion and is now doing one investigation at a time. So what is currently pending is a motion to adopt the recommendations and the final investigations and findings of the December 19th, 2022 report that has recommendations. That is what is pending at this time. That investigation does not have anything to do with Mrs. Patrica.
Is there any other discussion?
Thank you. So I'm going to say that's confusing. I just sat and listened to it. If you're going to vote on something that's not open to the public, that should be pulled. You guys shouldn't be voting on it, because if we don't have the right to see it or review the findings, why is the board voting on it? That's my question to you guys.
Any other public comment? Board members, you would vote, please. Record your vote. Sam Fisher? Aye. Mrs. Giovanelli?
Yes.
Ms. Patrica?
Yes, please.
Ms. Jordan?
I did have a question to our attorney, if I may. Do I have permission?
Yes.
Okay. Is it permissible for us to be voting on something that cannot be out there?
You're voting on the recommendations. You all know what is in that report, and you're aware of it, so you can go ahead and vote. You cannot discuss it at this time because of the status of that investigation.
Thank you. Okay, aye.
Ms. Jada Fleming?
Aye.
Ms. Morgan?
Aye.
And I am aye. Motion carries 7-0. Second motion. I move the board accept the final investigative reports, findings, and recommendations dated January 3rd, 2023. The superintendent and the school board attorney are directed to implement and follow the recommendations. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Mr. Fisher seconds. Is there any discussion? Sorry?
At this time, it's just discussion, not yet for the public.
Yep. Okay, any discussion among the board members? Mrs. Morgan?
Yeah, I'd like to bring to the board's attention the fact that we just approved a 33-page investigation with material and documentation supporting all of the allegations and justifying the recommendations. That compares to a 5-page investigation that took place over 6 months, 12 interviews, no material or documentary evidence, merely allegations, he said, she said, the 12 witnesses providing perceptions and hearsay. The conclusion of the report was that a whistleblower complaint was filed and it had no basis in fact. Allegations regarding violations of board policy, i.e. hostile work environment, are not supported by the evidence, but are based on investigators' conversations with individuals on a bitterly divided board who did not agree on the roles, the responsibilities, and the expectations for the board's performance. This report simply documents the board dysfunction and its failure to address sensitive board management issues publicly. And those are my comments. Actually, I'm going to make one other comment, since my name is mentioned in the last paragraph of this report. Dupree Bruno alleges that Morgan has threatened her by stating that she is going to dismantle the legal department and return it to its previous structure. During the pending of this, I don't understand the sentence construction, but I will say it, during the pending of this investigation, Morgan has made comments about wanting to complete this investigation so that the organization of the legal department can be addressed. And my response to that is, anyone can make an allegation without evidence. Board member efforts to perform board duties, such as effective, efficient, and transparent oversight of the board attorney and the work of the legal department, cannot be construed as retaliation. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Giovanelli.
I find it interesting because there's been many investigations that's been hearsay from individuals with no context or facts or evidence, and yet most of those employees don't even work here any longer. And I went to bat for them and tried to save their job, and they no longer are here. And so I find it interesting now that when the shoe's on the other foot, the rules change for the individual that the outcome and the evidence. I was one of the witnesses, and I'm very confident in saying that, and I think if you talk to some of these individuals on here, they have also experienced, because it says so in the findings, that they experienced the same treatment and behavior that Ms. Dupree Bruno was dealt with. And I don't know, but for me, when an employee doesn't have a safe work environment, that affects everything they do. And then that affects the board, because who they serve. And then it rolls downhill to the employees of the district. And I personally am here to say that we have to have a safe environment, and it starts with leading by example, and our actions, taking actions. Actions speak louder than words. Doing nothing, talking, gets us nowhere. It only kicks the can down the street farther and down the road as far as it can go. And if we don't take action, then it continues, and it take ownership of it. The answer, I'm having a difficult time as the answer, because I am not going to penalize the rest of the district to have bullying lessons and teachings and training when they have it every year anyways. And because of this board, and not really this board because it's a new board, but the prior board and board members on it. I believe in respect, so I'm going to try to be respectful here in this situation, in this environment, yet we need to take action. And I can't agree, and I will not agree, that the rest of the district has to be reprimanded for the actions of a board member. In light of the findings of Attorney Bruno's whistleblower investigation and the release to the public, I received countless calls and messages after they read it. I find these concerns very valid. I've been a board member for over 6 years, and during those 6 years, I've personally endured many of the tactics that was mentioned in this very investigation. I hesitate because, I'm not hesitating because I feel sad because when you look at this list, this didn't just happen to the board attorney who can defend herself, but this happened to other administrators and other people in the district. And that is my concern. How do we protect them who are afraid to come forward and put a whistleblower complaint? She is educated in this type of business, and yet others are not, and they don't have that expertise to protect themselves. So we, as a board, that is our job, to protect the people that we serve, including parents, including the students, including all staff and employees of the district. Even the ones that are no longer here would love to come and speak, but they were forced to sign a confidentiality clause. But I mean, there's a long list of employees that have reaped the benefits of this type of behavior. Things need to change. And the only way for them to change is right up here. We have to change. We have to take action and do something. I don't believe that we should, like I said, reprimand the employees that have had the bullying and harassment training. I spoke to the conflict attorney, and he made several great suggestions because I was concerned. How do we, as a board, what can we do? I know what I can do as an individual, and I'll talk about that later. But there's 3 opportunities for us as a board to take action in this situation. One was recommended that we do what we did before and not allow Ms. Patrica to talk and take action or to communicate with employees without a third party. That was already happening with Ms. Bruno, and I think that should be continued. There should be a third party when Ms. Patrica speaks to any employees so that they are in a safe environment. One also is to continue the censorship from here on out so that anything that Ms. Patrica is speaking on, that the board approves first. And thirdly, that Ms. Patrica should no longer be a liaison for the committees that she's on. That would be my recommendation versus training, because I think we have to take a stand as a board, and these are actions that are actionable items that we as a board can do. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Yes, Ms. Morgan.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one final comment, and that is that pursuant to what Mrs. Giovanelli said, there are questions about the quality of the investigations that have been done. There are questions about the investigators that have been used and the firms that have been used. This is about us and about how we are directing our staff to refer investigations to specific individuals or firms. And I think we have an obligation to look at our process, as I said, as Ms. Giovanelli said. So, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Giovanelli.
That can be done in a workshop or in a discussion another time. This is regarding the January 3rd investigation and the January 19th investigation, and I would stick with that at this time. Thank you.
I would like to say that since I've come on, oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I may, in reading this, and there was 13 individuals that were contacted and interviewed. Most of them were board members, a few were attorneys who worked directly with the person that had filed the report as well. But when I personally spoke with what the heck is this, Miss Denise Wheeler Wright, her comments to me were completely different than what she wrote. So when I saw this report, I was actually shocked when I seen this report, because it was a conversation we had. It was, who knows, he said, it was the he said, she said, who was in the room. And so that went on and on. So when I did receive this, I was kind of taken back, plus the fact how long it did take her to speak to 13 individual people, and then to include things that had nothing to do with what she was researching. So I just had to share that I just had to share that, because I was shocked when I seen this based on the conversations.
Thank you. I started to say that since I've come on the board, I've seen this board work so professionally well together. I know there's been past, and I've been out there where they are right now watching everybody attack each other, until at one point the attorney had to say, y'all are in crisis. I think we need to set a new culture and move forward, and that's why I'm making these recommendations. There was a censure already, so I don't feel like we need to go there. So I would like to, seeing no other discussions, go ahead and vote. Or you vote? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment, excuse me. Please.
Again, I'm Smoking Joe. Kathleen Morgan just said that she wasn't real happy with the investigators or who was investigating. We, the public, have been saying that about you board members for years, Kathleen. We ain't happy with who investigates y'all because y'all self-investigate. Get an outside investigator, I'll be happy with it. As a matter of fact, get the governor's office like we've been asking for. You've got one choice here. This is not a workshop thing, Armour, and I'm glad they're all working professionally with you, and hopefully keep your blood pressure down a little bit. You're awful red there. But this is not a workshop thing. You've got to stand up for the community. And regardless, Melissa, I give you props. I mean, I've called you out for not having a backbone many times, but this is the first thing I will stand up here and defend a board member for. I come in peace today. I have nothing bad to say about but one member. I want you to do the right thing and vote for what the public has asked for. This is not because of your actions. Y'all have not acted on this properly. This is because of the persistence of advocates and parents that we're here today. I've got better things to do. I've got one thing in this fight, and that's a 4-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter. That's it. That's the only reason I come up here. I ain't looking to get public office. I ain't looking to be a vendor for no reason. I'm looking for y'all to be held accountable. Do the right thing. That's it. There is no question here, and trust me, if y'all don't do the right thing tomorrow, the news tomorrow is going to be epic. And I know what you're going to vote, but here's a good thing. I know what you're going to do before you do it, Armour. I get people tell me stuff all the time. The entire board. How do you think that's possible? My phone never stops night and day till my wife tells me, get off of this for a minute. See, I have to take a break. All you got to do is get rid of one cancer. It is your chemotherapy today. Thank you.
Hi, Betsy Vaughn, former member of the, as Ms. Morgan puts it, the dysfunctional board. I can speak very specifically to all of this. I was one of the witnesses. I was one of the people interviewed. And I noticed that one of the terms that Ms. Dupree Bruno used in her whistleblower complaint was bullying and demeaning behavior toward her. I think today we saw a minor example of that. I can attest from my time on the board and listening to these things that Mrs. Patrica tended to pick at things. She never wanted Ms. Dupree-Bruno to be the board attorney, and she doesn't like it when things don't go her way. So even today, we were picking at a scrivener's error, commas and things like that, when you should have been looking at the concepts instead. This is very believable. Everything on the report, I don't have in front of me the December report, but I do have the January 3rd report. Everything on here is believable. A lot of it are things that I said, but I can attest to the fact that demeaning behavior is part of Ms. Patrica's MO, because I have a lot that I could say, but I'm just going to focus it on. She would say to me, "How does this help children?" She would, Miss Morgan often chimed in on, oh, what's a dysfunctional board. It's very interesting when the board the new people became, quote unquote, dysfunctional. Maybe I was fine until 2 or 3 months after I was on the board. Miss Morgan called me at home and threatened me, saying, January 2019, and threatened me with destroying my reputation. Things like that, things like Mrs. Patrica constantly picking at, and also getting with her people like Brian Williams and Andy Brown and others who are no longer with us on this district to write complaints against me, none of which stuff.
Okay, it's the first night I've been here. I've never walked up here that many times. When I was on the board, I had board members come to me and say to me and beg me, look, when you go outside that door, if you have something against someone, just leave it there. We don't want the public to think that we are having any issues. Once you come through that door, with a smiley face, let the public know we're working. The community sees. Ms. Morgan talked about not accepting the recommendations. My first question is, what are the recommendations on the report? She mentioned hearsay. My discussion with the investigator was not hearsay, it was my life. It was my experience and what I went through. I didn't have to make up anything. So whether the investigator was good or not, the information she got from me was the truth. And Smoking Joe mentioned a couple of times we needed to contact the governor. Well, you all know that I did. And Ms. Patrica was named in some of the information that I sent to the governor. And I had very high-level political pundits helping me not only to write it, but to deliver it to the governor's office. After it was delivered, I had several meetings with folks in Tallahassee, several meetings with even federal investigators. It was interesting to me that when politics got in the way, all of a sudden it was pushed aside. But to get to that point, people had to know there was something there. I was not making it up. So as far as, getting to the governor, that's happened. As far as training, that's happened. I'll give you just one quick example. When we were going through, and I'm not naming names and stuff, but we were going through a pretty difficult legal situation here with the board, and I personally was singled out. And I had death threats. Tar and feather and hang me. I had to have sheriffs around my house. I begged you all to just stand up one day in front of the news and say, we are a team, we are together. And no one did. And one person definitely said, oh, we can't do that. It's a legal situation. So I went through it on my own.
Denise Nystrom. I mentioned before that when I started coming to the board meetings, I came with an open mind and I listened. It was only after what I saw at the board meetings that I grew concerned about what it was that was occurring here. I watched, being at every single board meeting, I watched people be publicly humiliated by Mrs. Patrica. Okay, I watched it happen to Mrs. Vaughn, to Mrs. Gittens, to Dr. Savage. I watched it happen to Attorney Bruno, who I give a tremendous amount of credit to. I've watched her fight for her department only to be ridiculed by her fellow board members for trying to do so. I don't even know how she puts up with it. Mrs. Patrica herself, when she didn't even really know me, long before I didn't become a fan, and she did a town hall in Estero, and when I brought up the fact that boys should not go into girls' bathrooms, she shoved the microphone into my face and said, here, 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 why don't you talk? So as long as I've been coming here, it hasn't been with the intent to go after anybody, but it certainly is with the intent to stick up for those people that need to be stuck up for, and that is the children and their families, the staff, and this community. If a child was acting this way in your home, there would be consequences. Thank you, Board Member Giovanelli, for having the courage to say what you did today. I appreciate it. We've been in this situation before, watching what the board members have done, and what I'm hearing right now is we could end up in the same situation in the future. I really, really hope not. Thank you.
Hi, George Fox. I came here tonight with a whole different idea. I did not know this was actually going on. I thought this was old news 3 or 4 years ago. Unbelievable, guys, unbelievable. Everybody on this board, a lot of people who have spoken, all came through ViewPAC and campaigned for the school board. By far, the most impressive, put together, smart, knows what she wanted, and put the work into it. Started then and still is Chris Patrica. She's simply one of the best school board members this district has ever had. All the rest of this is a bunch of garbage. There's nothing to it. So there was a little tiff. Get over it. Okay? That's life. Everybody has tiffs. This isn't about, let's drop this. Let's make a motion to drop this and get on to something that actually matters. Guys, come on. She's a hardworking, very well respected, knows what she's doing, and is working for these kids. This is a whole bunch of bull. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. It is. Let's forget about it. Absolutely forget about it. All right? It's ridiculous. And I'll say this. Chris was on the board before anybody else on this thing, and when she joined the board, there was none of this. None. So the board changes, and suddenly, now there's problems. The timing doesn't, the facts, you got a bunch of this, that, and the other, but from what I see, when she got here, everything was great. She took charge, she was going for it, and did great, and still doing great. What's changed is the board. not Ms. Patrica. Thank you.
Seeing no other comment, we'll do a roll call vote. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Go ahead.
I also didn't come here to talk about this subject, that I kind of feel the need to now. I think the debate between Ms. Giovanelli and Ms. Morgan was interesting, and I tend to be somebody that errs on the side of the little guy, and I think that that's where Ms. Giovanelli is coming from. The people who made the complaint had a lot more to lose, in my opinion, because they were in a position where they could have been terminated for making that complaint. I think well, it's shocking to me that after 2021 and the reports that came out about her comments that she's still here. I'm surprised that she's continued to be elected. But I think the board should do something within their power, whether it's going to the governor or stricter sanctions like Ms. Giovanelli was saying. But I think if the recommendation in the report that we're not allowed to see is education, I think that's a cop-out. Educating somebody who's not interested in reform is not going to work. So please do something more to protect your staff.
Sharon McGill, with no offense or disrespect to previous board members or anybody else in the audience, I've been coming to the board meetings for well over 2 years now. Briefings, workshops, board meetings. And yes, were there times that I saw things going on that I probably would have handled differently? Probably. But that happens in every business when you have a board. Not everybody is going to agree with everything all the time. And what I can say about Ms. Patrica is that she says what she means and she means what she says. If you don't like that, then that can be an issue. I've never seen her be, in my opinion, disrespectful to anyone. I've been told that it's not what you say, it's how you say it sometimes. And I think in a lot of cases that may have been an issue. It was not what she was saying, but maybe just how she said it. Because I've been accused of that myself. And I guess I don't know what to say when you're sitting up there thinking that this isn't fixable. And that you're saying, oh, it's been like this for years. It's been going on for years. Well, then you know what? That's your fault that it's taken this long to do anything about it. So look yourself in the mirror. But I have never seen her be disrespectful to anyone, as people are saying. Now, perception is reality. Okay? That's a fact. Perception is reality. So you personally may perceive something she says as an attack, but somebody else may not. But yet you can get influenced and caught up in everything and not look at the big picture. Look at what has been accomplished by the board with Ms. Patrica on it and what she's been able to do. I mean, you're actually not setting a good example for the community by the way you're handling this and just getting ready to write it off and send it to the governor. We can't fix our own problems. That's what you're saying when you say send it to the governor. You're saying we can't fix what we think is a problem, when it might not even really be a problem, but you're saying we can't fix our own problems. So look yourself in the mirror, because you're the ones who are saying you can't fix it.
Is there any more comment? Now we will do, yes, Mr. Fisher?
Real quick, Mr. Chairpersons, excuse me. So I'm going to be supporting this motion. I agree with what you said. So I, along with 2 others, were not around for this time period, so I can't contest the facts one way or another, so no contest on that. So, but as you said, part of this board and what I look at every day I walk in this building is changing the culture in here. It's not about personalities. And part of my mission, as I said, is doing this.
Microphone's not on.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I was saying that Yes, ma'am. What I was saying is I do support this motion. As I said, I wasn't here for what happened in regards to the facts. I know 2 others weren't. I'm not contesting those facts. I don't have a basis at this point in regards to that. But what I am looking at is I support this is I want to change the culture here. That's part of it. Each and every day I walk in here, I walk into school, anywhere I represent this district, I want to change this culture. I don't want to see it back to what it was before. I want to make sure this is not about personalities. And part of this is what we're doing to move forward. And each of us are trying to set that example. I also want to remind board members and the public what our statutory duties are as well. There's certain things we can do and there's certain things we can't. I'm glad that Chairpersons is addressing this and that we're going to work together, and hopefully we don't see anything like this again. I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate what Chairpersons had to say. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Ms. Giovanelli.
I just want to rattle off the facts because there was insinuations that there was no evidence or facts. There was facts. False ethics complaint, watermarking, whistleblower complaint, the actual whistleblower complaint, if you read it, there was factual evidence in there where Ms. Dupree Bruno was being watched and ethics complaint filed against her, working with employees. That's when Ms. Patrica was working with employees. That's working with employees against board members. That she admitted that herself. These are facts. That is abuse of power, which is illegal. Which is illegal as a board member. So I just want to bring that up. That's what's important here. We can't. Not to mention, somebody mentioned the Guatemalan stuff. That's and she's gone after the public, people in the public that are just trying to do what's best for the district, and they want what's best for the district, and they bring forward complaints because individuals are scared to. I agree with you, Mr. Fisher. It is the culture. I just can't. I'm having a hard time having to reprimand and making the district have the training. I don't have a problem going to the training because I believe in respect and I don't believe in harassment and I don't believe in bullying. But will it help? We've done it. Even when the prior board, we've done it and it didn't help. But I'm all about trying it, maybe trying it a different way. But I'm not confident in the outcome. But there's facts. There's lots of facts and evidence. So I just want to bring that. It's not something that was just made up out of the blue. Thank you.
All right, board members, if you will do a roll call for the motion. Mr. Fisher?
Aye.
Ms. Giovanelli?
No.
Ms. Patrica?
No, thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
Aye.
Jada Fleming?
Aye.
Ms. Morgan?
No.
And I'm an aye. Motion fails 4-3, I believe.
No.
No, it passes.
Passes.
Or passes 4-3, excuse me. Correct. I stand corrected. At this time, I would like to make another motion. And the reason for this is it's not just this board, but I've read all the investigative reports far back. And the bullying has been happening at several departments all throughout the district. And we stress bullying most of the time, kids versus kids. But it's supervisors versus employees. It's sometimes employee versus employee. And I know we have a program on bullying, but it obviously has not been working. So I would like to readdress that. And for that reason, I want to make a motion here. I move the board expects and directs that all board members and employees comply with the board policy 4.14 which is bullying and harassment, and Board Policy 5.331, the whistleblower's protection. The board shall attend a workshop on bullying and harassment as relates to employees. The board shall also participate in a whistleblower retaliation workshop. All those in district leadership shall undergo training regarding bullying, harassment as relates to employees and retaliation. The workshops and trainings shall be completed by June 30th, 2023. The specific training relating to bullying, harassment, and retaliation of employees shall also be incorporated into the annual training of board members and all staff. Board Policy 4.14 and 5.331 should be revised to include this annual training and clarify the repercussions if this policy is violated. The school board attorney is directed to work with the superintendent and appropriate staff to effectuate this motion. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Mrs. Patrica? Is there any discussion? Board members? Yes, Mrs. Giovanelli.
Okay, so your motion is regarding the shift to speak up and listen up, right? Culture, right? You haven't
No,
got to that? You read that?
That's the next one.
No, we just voted on that.
No, we didn't. You were sort of talking about it, but the one we voted on was to accept the reports. This motion is to go into the bullying and harassment.
Thank you. No.
Mrs. Jordan.
Thank you. I believe that we already have annual training, so I don't know why we would put this in here when we already have that. And I would, I guess, look at Dr. Bernier, because I know he is, that's his staff, and
This is incorporating both whistleblower and bullying and putting them together, which will go into the next one, sort of the speak up and listen up without retaliation. It seems to be lost in those investigative reports I've had, and we need to discuss repercussions when this happens and go in that direction. And that's the reasoning for this, that whatever, and I have not had the training, but I can see by the results, it's not working. Okay, and we need to make sure that every employee knows they won't be retaliated against and they won't stand for bullying. And it's a cultural change. And it's not widespread in the district, I'm sure of that. But we just need to make sure it's not there at all.
And I'm all for people not being bullied nor harassed, absolutely against that. But whistleblowers, so that would be learning what a whistleblower is and their rights.
Yes.
Because, I mean.
As someone stated, the average employee does not know that.
Okay.
Okay, and I think that would be a good part to add to it. And it also goes to teacher retention. They feel like they're not being listened to, but that's our next motion.
That's the next one.
Okay.
That's the next one. Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Fleming.
Sorry. My only concern is regarding, and I'm completely against bullying, harassing, just state that for the record. But my only concern is the board is one thing, but the staff is another thing. They already do I know this because I was an educator. I think now they take 12 courses over the summer every year that are repeated. I know one of them is bullying, harassment in the workplace. If that needs to be revised, I think those videos and courses, I believe, come from the state. I don't think that comes directly from our district. I think other school districts around the state watch some of the same ones, like the asbestos training, the safety training. Can you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Superintendent?
Some of our trainings come directly from the state, others are done in-house.
Okay, so as far as the bullying and harassment one, I do know that the staff is already taking that as part of, but maybe if that was one that was developed within house, maybe we add a component of whistleblower just so that we don't add one more course for them to take throughout the summertime?
Yes, I mean, the purpose there is to change the culture, starting with us and going down all the way to the lowest employees. Mrs. Giovanelli.
So I would be in agreement to add the whistleblower to the whistleblower protection, somehow video for staff to be able to have that education and that opportunity to acknowledge how that process is implemented for them and how that would work for them and empowering them. I would love that. I think that would be really good for employees. I'm hesitant to make them do anything additional other than what they already do annually. And that was what I was talking about earlier. So that lends me back to, I hate to do this and it's gonna mess everybody up, but I wanna change my vote from for number one. I'm gonna vote, I wanna change that to yes. And my apologies, ladies, but I moved too far ahead of y'all and I'm sorry. So I would support the whistleblower. Back to number two, I would support that. But I won't, so I don't know if that can be broken up or changed, my opinion. I'm not opposed to the board trying it again because I'm all about changing the culture and starting and setting that example. So I'll do it again. It's hours. I'm just going to tell you, it's exhausting. It's very exhausting and it's a long time, but I'll do it. Thank you.
Ms. Patrica.
So I have a question, if I may, through the chair to the superintendent. Leadership, part of the motion, all those in district leadership shall undergo training regarding bullying, harassment, etc. Does leadership currently undergo that training, or is that something that you discuss, which is part of like the training required for teachers?
I'm not looking for this to be a separate training. I'm looking for it all be incorporated probably into existing training, adding the whistleblower and making it a better training.
Okay.
But to make sure all leadership does do it, including the board.
Okay.
Mr. Superintendent, how does...
I'm not sure what the question is any longer because you just sort of answered it. I think if I can add yes, we have this training. Could the training be revised? Could it be updated? Could it be made more current? I believe it should be looked at through that lens. I don't think there's any problem whatsoever in looking what our teachers and what our administrators and what our bus drivers and what our food personnel all have to do in the terms of the countless hours in front of a screen. It equals almost a whole week worth of training. We agreed last year that this spring we were going to look at it internally as a district staff because we believe you can train people without taking up days of their lives, no soap opera intended, days of their lives while they do this consistently. I think the idea is for us to be in a position where you've suggested in this motion we be completed by June 30th. If that is the will of the board, then we will go back through our processes, through our professional development department. We will revise these trainings to ensure we give workshops or whatever we need so you can see what we're actually asking the staff to complete and see whether it meets the board's expectations. We can do this.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
May I ask a question to
Yes.
the super? Mr. Superintendent, what is the date currently for the other courses or tests that the teachers have to take before each school year?
The date was to be completed by October. With the advent of the hurricane, we extended that process into the winter, just prior to the winter holidays. When I've asked my professional development teams for a list of administrators, teachers, and other people who have not completed the training, I just recently asked for that within the past week.
Without a hurricane year, what would the normal date be, would you say?
It would be October 1 with a grace period of Halloween. I always remind people that if you're handing out candy and you haven't done your required training, that is a red flag for you. So if you're standing at the Halloween front door and handing out candy and you haven't done your training, that's your reminder.
So chairpersons,
Yes.
just one more thing. If I love a lot of this, but if we could just extend that date, June 30th, seems quite expedient, especially with all the things our teachers already have on their plate, right on top of right after graduations, et cetera. So if we could just maybe push that date closer to that October 1st. That is all.
I have no objections. I will amend my motion and make, so the motion is there any other discussion? Is there, okay.
I do.
Yes.
I just want to make, because I know Ms. Langford Fleming had just asked the superintendent, and he gave us the date that they already had as a district. And again, as the superintendent, that is his job to oversee. I just want to make sure we're not stepping over our lane. I know people don't hate that word, but I want to make sure that we're not stepping over, and we're giving him, we can give him directions on this of our wishes, and then ask him to make that happen. I just think that we're really close to, and then we're even putting on here, and should be revised to include this annual training and clarify the repercussions of the policy of violating. Again, that's his job, the superintendent, not ours.
We're not telling him the repercussions. We just think it needs to be part of that there needs to be repercussions. We can do that in a workshop or something. But again, ignoring it is what's wrong. The present isn't working. We need to come up with a new training, a better training, to look at it through a new lens, as the superintendent said, that people aren't afraid to come forward and say things. And I think that will, when people know that, then I think that will cease a lot of the problems, because they were getting away with it. A lot of the investigative reports throughout the district, it's that are still ongoing even. Okay, I will amend the motion. I move that the board expects and directs all the board members and employees comply with board policy 4.14, bullying and harassment, and board policy 5.31, whistleblowers protection. The board shall attend a workshop on bullying and harassment as it relates to employees. We're leading by example. The board shall also participate in a training regarding bullying. The board shall also participate in a whistleblower and retaliation workshop. All those in district leadership shall undergo training regarding bullying, harassment as it relates to employees and retaliation. The workshops and training shall be completed by October 1st, 2023. Specific training relating to bullying, harassment, and retaliation of employees shall also be incorporated into the annual training of board members and all staff. Board policy 4.14 and 5.331 should be revised to include this annual training and clarify the repercussions if the policy is violated. The school board attorney is directed to work with the superintendent and the appropriated staff to effectuate this motion. Is there a second? Mrs. Petrika?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Any public comment on the amended? That's why I hated to do it.
Mr. Persons, you don't know what you don't know. You are coming across to those of us who actually sat on this board and endured some of these things, including board member collusion with upper-level management people in this school district, including, and what I'm understanding is happening even these past several months, breaking of sunshine laws when planning is being done on, for instance, who's going to be the vice chair and who's going to be the chair. Wow, that was out there in the public way before it happened. So I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I think you need to take a look at some other things. The person sitting up on this dais who has done the most for this issue is Dr. Bernier. I say that because when he came in, the people who were the kinds of people who would bow to certain board members and collude with certain board members, and I do have facts to back that up, but not the time to tell it right now, they're no longer here. Some of them left on their own recognizance because they realized they're not going to get away with it anymore. There are others that are still here and that perhaps are being a little more careful. But I can right now look out in this audience at someone who was the superintendent before Dr. Bernier came in. And do you think that person didn't get bullied? Oh, yes, it happened. You don't know what you don't know. Or maybe it is that you do know all of this. Maybe it is that you know all this, but you came sweeping in here with a smug smile that you are going to be the savior. And that terrible board with people like Betsy Vaughn, that liberal who was a troublemaker, we're going to stop that nonsense. And we're going to move these board discussions ahead. Yeah, you can do that by not even talking about the things that need to be talked about. You don't know what you don't know. And what I'm wondering is, you and Mr. Fisher, how much you learned in Tampa back in December when you went to the special board training for chair people.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Your time has expired.
Good evening again. One question I have is that I've asked several questions about this, and there have not really been any answers to the questions that came up in public comment. Just asking that. The two reports, if I'm not incorrect, are about the behavior of one person. It's not about the behavior of a district. Am I correct? Anyone answer that? Okay, it's not about the behavior of the district. Ms. Langford Ford brought up a good point that all the teachers and staff and everybody they're not listed on this report. It doesn't say anything about the teachers and the administrators and all of these people did these terrible things or that they bullied each other and all. It's not there. We started out here in the center. We have radiated out into this humongous sphere and gotten away from why we're here, the facts of why we're here. And I'm just asking and begging you to do that. I agree with her, and I agree with Ms. Giovanelli. Why are we punishing everyone and making them do another thing when none of the report says that? When none of the issues say that? That's not what it's about. And this is how we get away from fixing it for so long. Because once we start fixing it, then we just start, oh, we can all do this and this and this, and it just keeps getting bigger. But we forgot the nucleus. And the nucleus has not ever and is not being fixed.
Smoking Joe, and yes, as I was scoffed as a couple of us stood up by some of the board members, that goes back. Armour wants to hear stuff. He wants to hear from the people. He don't want to hear from us. He don't want to hear from the tax-paying citizens with children in the district. He wants to hear from some of you guys. Now, first off, doesn't the board, the district have a zero tolerance policy for bullying in this area? Ain't that what then why are we even discussing this? Zero tolerance is not just for our children. Zero tolerance is for you and her and the rest of you. So when are we going to stand up and do the right thing? Look, you've already violated one person's civil rights tonight by doing exactly what you said you wanted people to do, is come up and speak. You let another member, because they were speaking on behalf of Miss Patrica, use curse words. If I'd have said anything like that, you would have threw me out just like you did Miss Perez. There's a double standard here, and you are not entitled. You have no, and as another thing, as far as privacy, as documents, the privacy is on you. If we find it, we're going to expose it. And trust me, we've got boxes full of it. It's time. All we're asking is do the right thing. Cure the problem. And you all know the problem. Ms. Bernier, I told you, I'm going to give you credit for what you've done. You've done a remarkable job in the face of the hurricane disaster. Give you props for that. But the rest of you need to take a serious look at yourself. If you let this go on, we're not going to stop coming. I haven't been here since y'all been on the board. This is important to me. This is important to my community. This is important to the hundreds of people, and I'm seriously hundreds of people that call me and email me every week about what are we going to do about this board. You don't have a lot of the public's, they don't think that you're going to be able to handle this. I seriously think that y'all are making a mistake by not going ahead. There shouldn't even be discussion. We should end this right now. Turn this over to somebody who will investigate it properly. And why do you not want that? Why? Give me one reason, the reason why we don't want the governor to look into this board. Is it because of certain consultant firms put you all on the board? Maybe that's the reason. You need to do what is right for our community, not yourselves, not for no consultants. That needs to be gone. That needs to be dealt with today. And as a board, you have a power to have the community stand up for a decision you make. Make the right decision.
Hi, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but since bullying came up, the subject, I go back, my first board meeting, Nancy Graham, then I went through Atkins, then Savage, now we have all these new people. The last board, all the boards I sat through, was the worst board I ever seen. They didn't get into what was good for the kids. They got into gay situations, bathroom situations, political situations. I didn't hear that much about getting our kids doing better. There was some there. I've been bullied pretty much all my life. It made me a better person because I could only speak Armenian and Turkish. I had to learn English. I had to fight my way as a hockey player because I learned to stand up for myself because kids bullied me the way I spoke. I still don't speak good English, but I try. Bullying is a bad thing. In my situation, it made me tougher. So all I can say is this board, I think, looks like a pretty good board. Get out of the politics, get out of the gender crap, and let's teach our kids. I am against bullying. I've been bullying. Thank you.
Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Yepram Dervahanyan. Good Armenian name.
Thank you.
George Fox once again. That's unbelievable. This board needs to forget this whole thing. All right, this is a big, gigantic waste of time and money. Plain and simple. I mean, come on, for crying out loud, this has been going on for 4 years, 5 years, whatever. It didn't start until the board changed. You know, I mean, I got a pretty good ear to the whole situation. When Chris joined the board, it was a big, gigantic plus. And she was voted in by a great margin and did good. And then the board around her has changed. You know, what Chris didn't do was support the wild, crazy Republican right that wants all this stuff. She said, I'm on the board, I'm gonna do what I think's best for the kids. That didn't go over so well with the Republican establishment. That's what happened. And they're still following her around. That's all this is. But there's nothing to it. She is who she is. She's on the board. She represents her people. She talks to her people the way they do. This isn't a personality contest. All right? She's got a job to do. Let her do it. Big, complete waste of time, gigantic waste of money, and it's going to go nowhere. It's going to get investigated. It's going to all this, that. They're going to run up tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. And in the end, they're going to say, it's a she said, they said thing. There's really nothing to it. Okay? Nobody and anything is ever going to agree. But I can tell you this. Chris was here first, and there was none of this. And as the board changed and the mix in the board, people left, people came on, suddenly this is a big issue. And it's in politics. You know, I follow politics pretty closely, and this is political. This has nothing to do with bullying or anything. This is political get back, because Chris will not do the crazy stuff. She's there, what she's going to think that's best for the kids, she's going to do it, and she's stuck by it, and it's got her in hot water with her own Republican Party, and that's what this really is. So drop it, save us all the money, the time, the aggravation, and let's get on to something new. You guys have a lot of potential. It's lots of good things. Certainly not plenty of work. Okay? So please, thank you.
I wasn't going to, but now I can't resist. This is not political. And I know a lot of people on this board very well. And this topic right now is not political. So I want to say for the record that when I hear somebody saying to the people up on this board that what is occurring right now is political, that is emphatically incorrect and not true. And it's not just a question of bullying. It was way beyond bullying. It was utter intimidation where some people were concerned, to the point that they were probably afraid that they would lose their jobs. And the last thing I'll say is, thank you for sticking up for the teachers and the faculty, because we can't forget what it is that they do. This was not political.
See no more comments? Mr. Fisher?
Chairpersons, I'm seeing if you and the board might entertain an amendment to this motion where we keep it for the board and for district leadership as mandatory, and maybe ask the superintendent then to report back on the employee part, just to see where we're at and see with compliance.
I second that.
I second that.
Go through all this again. Mrs. Giovanelli?
Well, my only concern is that the whistleblower aspect, they should have that, unless you want to put that on the website and they don't have to have the training, but I want that information out there. I know we have a policy, but people don't know the policy. I think the training piece of it, to know that their opportunity and their protection regarding the whistleblower piece and knowing how to navigate through that is really important, because I brought that up earlier. Attorney Bruno had expertise in that. She's an attorney, but not everybody has that. And I have to stand up for the people that need it most, and that didn't have it, that I know were whistleblowers and that did not have that opportunity. We have to make sure that opportunity is there for the staff. So I really want to, I'll support that, but I really want the whistleblower piece is vital. Thank you.
Mr. Mr. Fisher?
I was just referring to the training, to come back on the training part. I wasn't talking about in regards to anything else. I just want to make sure, and Member Langford Fleming had mentioned this, we have a lot on, obviously, staff and teachers' plates right now, so I want to make sure we do that part right, so.
Ms. Patrica?
I was kind of under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, that what you are suggesting here with the new August deadline is that the training take place as usual, but perhaps with an update to include the whistleblower information. So I wasn't under the impression that this was going to be anything in addition to what we normally do. It's just sort of an amended training. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is an accurate assessment.
Okay.
If that's the case, then my apologies, I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. Okay. We will now do a roll call vote.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, do you mind if I restate your motion to make sure that we are clear? Okay, the motion before us at this time is I move that the board expects and directs that all board members and employees comply with board policy 4.14, bullying and harassment, shall attend a workshop on bullying and harassment as it relates to employees. The board should also participate in a whistleblower and retaliation workshop. Excuse me. All those in the district leadership shall undergo training regarding bullying, harassment as it relates to employees and retaliation. The workshops and training shall be completed by October 1st, 2023. Specific training relating to bullying, harassment, and retaliation of employees shall also be incorporated into the annual training of board members and all staff. Board Policy 4.14 and 5.331 should be revised to include this annual training and clarify the repercussions if the policy is violated. The school board attorney is directed to work with the superintendent and appropriate staff to effectuate this motion. At this time, would you like to call it to a vote?
Yes. All right. Mr. Fisher?
Aye.
Mrs. Giovanelli?
Aye.
Ms. Patrica?
Yes, please.
Ms. Jordan?
I'm sorry, what was the date again? Was it October?
October 1st.
Okay, aye.
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 And aye.
And I am an aye.
Mr. Chair, I have to just step away for a minute.
Okay.
And I don't want you to take that as a lack of interest in your next motion, but I need a break.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is our last motion. I move that well, first off, we want to change, and all the motions have led to this last one. We want to have our culture as a listen up, speak up. We want to encourage employees to speak up, and we want to make sure that the people they're talking to are listening up. And this goes way down even to teacher retention. You know, a lot of people say it's all salary and benefits, but yet some schools, all the teachers stay. And other schools, they don't. And I think there's got to be a frustration from what I've talked to teachers about not being heard, and they're frustrated, and along with whatever they're not happy with, that's enough to make them leave. So the motion is, I move the district begin its to shift to a speak up and listen up work culture. All board members and district leadership shall undergo training to accomplish this cultural change and instrumental in effectuating this practice. The training can be incorporated as a part of the bullying, harassment, and retaliation training previously discussed. The board attorney is directed to work with the superintendent and appropriate staff to effectuate this motion. And again, this is simply culminates the whole thing. We need to have a culture that everybody is listening up and speaking up. Any discussion? Jordan.
As a point of order, Mr.
Okay, yes.
Persons, we did not have a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Second. Is there a second?
Was it seconded?
Mr. Fisher seconds. Okay, discussion. Ms. Jordan.
Okay, so we have training, more training, and more training, and then some training.
All together.
So the last bit of the training, the undergo the training, because not only do they go through this training, there are also the lunch trainings that they go to help teachers, staff, us, whoever wants to be a part of it, to go on there to learn about how to treat people, you know, how do we see other people? Are we looking at them? What lens are we looking at them from? So, I mean, it's like a continuous training that I believe our district goes through. So what does this training look like to incorporate with the other training? I guess I need to understand what that training looks like.
We're currently with the Lighthouse, and they have a program that goes along with this, which is Speak Up, Listen Up.
So that would be considered an additional training, or how are we incorporating that with this?
It is not a huge training. It can be incorporated in with the bullying harassment with not a whole lot more. It just sort of is like the final piece, is we need the people to realize that if someone speaks and other people listen, hopefully there will not be any bullying. There will be no need for a whistleblower. That's where it starts. But when people don't listen, or they're bullied and they can't speak up, then we're in trouble. So, this is a training, but it's a little bit different. I've read up on it, and it's a cultural change. It really is. And some schools have this. I've been to schools you walk in and you can tell. Everybody, you know, any teacher can say anything, or the janitor can say something to the principal. And the janitor speaks up and the principal listens up. And that's the culture we need all throughout this district.
And of course, that stems from leadership.
Yes.
On down.
That's why we need to do it too.
Right. Oh, of course, 100%. But that's the only thing I'm concerned about, is making sure, and I would even ask Dr. Bernier, where does he see this fitting in as far as the training? Because I'm not sure, has he, anything we've even spoken about this evening, has he been even privy to any of these motions or anything that was coming before? Was that a conversation that was already had with him? I'm just curious.
Slightly, but not specifically, I would say. We've talked about the need for all of this.
Again, I don't want to be doing the superintendent's, and I get what you're saying, and I'm all for all of this, and against bullying. I believe that we need to make sure that people feel comfortable and confident enough to always be able to speak up, and for people to hear what they have to say, regardless if we like it or not. I think it's really important. But I also think, again, I don't feel that we need to be stepping on the superintendent's, what his job is. I just want to make sure that we are clear that we are not doing that.
This training is already, not specifically, but the bullying and the whistleblowers is in our policy already. This is just clarifying it to take it just a little step further, because the employees need to be told that they can speak up. Okay, now that should be at part of the bullying, and that they are protected by a whistleblower. They should know that. But I do not believe the training is there, just from the results of the district that I've read in the past. So this is to incorporate all of them together and to get a new culture.
Okay. And so if I may ask one more question then, is it the board's responsibility to come up with the training for the district, or is it the superintendent's responsibility?
The actual training to come up with will be between the attorney and the superintendent working together. They will devise the training. We don't actually devise the specific training, but it has to be along those lines of speak up, listen up, which there is a program for that they can incorporate. It just needs to be incorporated in the bullying and the whistleblower that they already take. Ms. Patrica.
You done? I think that, given the findings specifically of the Taylor English, I think that this is very important, and I think it's important from a legal perspective that we be proactive before that investigation is completed from other agencies. I think you're making the right move here. And just in general, with regard to the difficult conversations we've had to have at the table tonight, I appreciate your leadership. I think you've done a fantastic job of sort of guiding us through this, and I want to recognize that it was not easy, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Any more comments? Ms. Jada Fleming?
I just really have a question because I just want to be a little bit more clear on this third motion. Are you asking for a separate, I just want to make sure, you're asking for a motion to make a third training that pretty much encompasses what the second motion discussed in addition to a listen up, speak up culture? That's my first question.
It's additional part of the bullying whistleblower training, not a totally separate thing, because they all go together.
Okay. I just don't want teachers to panic when they watch this board meeting and go, one more training. That's the only, so I'm just trying to clarify for educators. Also, I would like to possibly make a recommendation, since we are trying very hard to shift into this speak up, listen up, and feel that people can be trusted when they do have something on their minds, that, and we're building that bridge of trust between the board and the leadership all the way down to staff. Is there maybe possibly something along the lines of, I know we've talked about the videos that superintendent's done such a great job doing. Maybe we could do some, maybe the board could even, maybe Mr. Chairpersons could even be in the video with the super, just maybe some snippet videos of some positive reinforcement to this idea in itself. That's just a thought recommendation. Thank you. That's all.
Ms. Giovanelli.
Actually, that was some of my notes, because I think it's a speak up, listen up is a concept that, and a message, and how would you get the message out? I think Ms. Fleming, that was a perfect, because I think it's a campaign, and I think we have to, I love the video idea of how to, it's something we need to talk about. It's like, you know, we had the safe space stickers, but this is similar to that. We want people to feel comfortable. Speak up, listen up. I think that it's a concept that I think we need to embrace. And I love it, actually, because I think that it's the start for people to be able to communicate and speak about how they feel, even if a perception is theirs, because if they speak up and they know that they can do it without retaliation or harassment, then they'll do it. And I think that is really important. And so thank you. I support this, because I think if an employee was founded like credible evidence in like this it was, they would not be here any longer. They would have lost their job. So I think that's really important that we need to think about and stay focused on that. We need to have a safe environment for our attorneys and our attorney staff, and including the employees in the district. So I will stay continued on that and focused on that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comment?
Thank you. I do have one question. If the premise of all of this was based on actions and behaviors of one board member, should that board member be allowed to vote on these issues? And if so, how do the last two votes, how are they affected by having Ms. Patrica vote on the situation, which is supposed to help remediate something that is about her? Thank you.
I know y'all gonna love me tonight, but I didn't have nothing to say till we got to the speak up, listening up. There's a lot of people watching, and I've got 4 messages since you said that. And you know what they said? They said, what constitutes bullying? What constitutes bullying in this district? Does the fact that a certain board member's been visiting schools and trying to encourage, intimidate principals about who to vote for, the elected superintendent? I just got a message from 2 principals saying that Sam Fisher is doing exactly that. Now, how can we trust the board to do what's right and enforce a speak up, listen up, when you're not listening to us? We've told you to get rid of the problem, and we got more problems coming up. I'm speaking up. It's time for somebody to listen up.
When I was younger, I played competitive sports basically every day. I played competitive soccer and volleyball. And I remember one of the most demoralizing things was when one player would mess up and the coach would punish all of us. You know, a player would mouth off and the rest of us would have to run a mile. And it happened a lot. And I think that you're setting yourselves up and you're setting Dr. Bernier up to have a very unhappy staff. This issue isn't about them. They're not the ones that committed the crime, so to speak. I think that you should, I think as a board, the education is appropriate, but I don't think that it should be passed down to the rest of the staff.
Yes, Ms. Jordan.
Chair, if you can please, what our last speaker just spoke about, and that's what I keep speaking about, we are not asking for additional training. We are just asking for the training that they are already taken to be revised, and it would be the same training. And I think Ms. Langford Fleming, I'm so sorry, Ms. Fleming. It's like, this is just going on and on in my head. I apologize to you. But I just want to make sure that we are not, by these motions that are being put into place, and again, to me, this is the superintendent's, this is his job. I love what you're trying to do here. I am all for this. You know, all for, you know, being out there listening, no bullying, no this, no that. I feel that I am that person. I don't do that. I don't believe in it. But I also want to make sure that we are not penalizing or hurting other people in doing and making these motions. And I know we keep saying that we're just going to implement them, put everything together, and it's going to be the same. Is it going to be the same? Because we're speaking for the superintendent, you know, and saying this is what, you know, you're going to speak. We hadn't even spoken to him before, so he had no idea that this is even what we're talking about. Again, this is nothing negative towards you, but I'm just saying he was not even, I don't believe that he even had an opportunity to have a discussion prior to this with, that's why I asked that question. So, you know, again, we're making these decisions and then saying, okay, thanks, Dr. B, you know, make this happen, you know, by this date. And then also try to figure out how to throw a whistleblower in there and then how to throw these other new ideals into this training and make it happen by such and such a date. So that's just my comments. Sorry.
Sorry, just for clarification, as I read this second motion, it applies to board members and district leadership. So we're not asking for it says the district begin its shift to speak up, listen up, work culture, which to me means it starts at the top.
Yes.
Am I reading this correctly?
You are.
And we're not adding this to the October training that we're asking the superintendent to do. We're asking essentially the leadership team to engage in this and by example, go out and function in this way, and then if the superintendent decides this is something he wants for the entire workforce, or if it's something the board wants to require the superintendent to do, we take that next step, but we're not there yet. Am I understanding this correctly?
You're correct. This part starts with the leadership, because the hardest part is the listening up. So if all the leadership listens up, then people won't be afraid to speak up, you know. And I love the idea about the videos, even though I'm going to have to stand on something if I'm next to the superintendent, as I did today. Otherwise, he's 4 feet taller than I am. But that is a correct interpretation.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I did want to give a point of reference.
Yes.
That as this motion does not lead to an economic benefit for any member on this board, there would be no conflict of interest for any board member sitting here today to vote on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? Oh, we already had to vote. Sorry. Roll call vote. Mr. Fisher.
Aye.
Ms. Giovanelli.
Yes, I support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Ms. Patrica.
Yes, please.
Ms. Jordan.
I will go along with you. Yes.
Ms. Langford Fleming.
Aye.
Ms. Morgan.
Aye.
And I am an aye. That is 7-0. Thank you all for hanging in there. I know it's been a long night.
Day.
Ms. Dupre Bruno, do you have any comments? Or,
Good afternoon,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair. Corey Huffman on behalf of School Board Attorney Ms. Dupree Bruno, and I would like to make a comment.
please.
From a legal compliance, liability, and ethical standpoint, moving the district to a speak up and listen up work culture is important. Providing for the physical safety of staff prevents and mitigates workers' compensation claims, on-the-job injuries, prevents bullying, harassment, and retaliation, and provide for the psychological safety of employees. The school board has a whistleblower hotline monitored by an outside third party called Lighthouse, which is owned by Centrio. You can reach Lighthouse by calling 833-222-4147. For Spanish, 800-216-1288, and for French, 855-725-002. You can also fax a complaint and documents to 215-689-3885. You can email reports, that's with an S, at lighthouse-services.com or at lighthouse@leeschools.net. All of the information regarding Lighthouse can be found under the Office of Legal Services on the Lee Schools website, which includes a QR code to access the Lighthouse app. The Lighthouse reports are now received and processed by the Office of Legal Services. When a complaint is received, they are reviewed and forwarded appropriately depending on the facts, which includes sending it to the school site administrator, administrators in the central office, professional standards, and legal can review internally. Upon the superintendent or board approval, it may be sent to an outside investigator or may be sent to a local, state, or federal agency. Individuals making good faith reports are protected from retaliation pursuant to Florida Statute 112.3187 and Board Policy 5.331. The speak up and listen up culture leads to a safe, civil, respectful work environment. The legal team, we will do our part to help move us forward as the board has directed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, any comments?
I'm not sure where to begin. The first thing about a speak-up environment is trust, respect for others, and inclusion. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to go through a couple of other things. Your graduation schedule has come out. I hope that you'll take an opportunity to look at the upcoming high school graduations. I attended certain ones last year, so I'll be making sure I don't do them 2 years in a row so I can spread myself out. I'd like to let you know that my listening and dialogues with our teachers and our staff continue. Again, I have 11 more to complete before spring break. It's been amazing to sit down with people in a listen up, speak up culture, and to provide them the opportunity to begin to do this work before we had the meeting tonight. We did not mention the Teacher of the Year this evening, but I think Mr. McGurley deserves another formal recognition. He's an amazing educator, does great work. Golden Apple finalists will be announced this Friday night. Looking forward to meeting the 30 and then seeing how that all transpires. I think it's important, based upon some information provided tonight during public comment, that we remind people that we have another executive session tomorrow regarding bargaining. I think it's very important for everyone to hear, who may still be awake or still listening, that this board had committed to not only working on the benefits package, which we are proud that could move to ratification, really changing the lives. And Chair Parsons, thank you for your opportunity. He provided me today to record a message together regarding that. But Hurricane Ian has certainly put a dent in our operational funding. So we've met previously. The Budget and Finance Department was tasked, along with Human Resources and our chief negotiators, to go back. They have worked, and we hope that tomorrow will be more fruitful with a number to bring forward. But I think we also have to put everything in perspective, that the number that was on the table prior to September 28th will be a different number moving forward. But it does not change the commitment of this board to its educators and its support professional employees. Lastly, I just want you to know that sometimes school-based decisions get made when it comes to wanting to operate your school building appropriately, and to ensure that as children get used to new cafeteria procedures and new procedures going to and from the classroom, that's why cold food had been served at Franklin Park Elementary. Franklin Park Elementary has a hot kitchen, and the students were served hot tacos today. Not tomorrow, they were served them today. So I appreciate the opportunity to listen to your discussion, and appreciate the time this evening.
Thank you. Next scheduled meeting of the board on Wednesday, February 1st. There will be a workshop at 12 p.m. On Tuesday, February 7th, there'll be a board briefing at 1 p.m. followed by board action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no other business come before this body and seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 9:12 p.m.